Famous people who passed away in 1746. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. William Tennant. He was born in 1673 and he died in May 1746. His age was 73 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a key figure in the Great Awakening. Tennant is remembered for founding the Law College, a precursor to Princeton University. He was an early Scottish-American Presbyterian minister and educator in British North America. He migrated to the 13 colonies in 1718, arriving in the colony of Pennsylvania at the urging of his wife's cousin James Logan, a Scots-Irish Quaker and close friend of William Penn. In 1726, he was called to a pastorate at the Chamonix Presbyterian Church in present-day Warminster, where he stayed for the remainder of his life. He filled his pupils with evangelical zeal, and a number became revivalist preachers in the First Great Awakening. James Drummond, 3rd Duke of Perth. He was born in May 1713 and he died in May 1746. His age was 33 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was fever. He was a Scottish landowner, best known for his participation in the Jacobite Rising of 1745, during which Charles Edward Stuart attempted to regain the British throne for the House of Stuart, a prominent Jacobite who fought at Culloden and died in exile in France shortly after the defeat of the Jacobite forces. Perth was one of the two active lieutenant generals of the Jacobite army, although past historiography of the rising has tended to minimize his role. Following the defeat at Culloden, he escaped on a French ship with several other Jacobite leaders, but died during the voyage. During the voyage to France, there was an epidemic of fever on the ships, and Perth on board was among those who died on 13th May as the ships were not able to reach the coast. He was buried at sea. Thomas Southern. He was born in February 1660 and he died in May 1746. His age was 86 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was an Irish playwright, noted for his tragic and comedic works, including Orinoco, based on the novel by Alfred Ben. He attended Trinity College, Dublin in 1676 for 2 years. In 1680, he began attending Middle Temple, London, to study law, but was drawn away by his interest for theatre. By 1682, he was greatly influenced by John Dryden and produced his first play, The Loyal Brother, which was performed at the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane, by the King's Company. In 1685, Southern enlisted as an ensign in Princess Anne's regiment of the Duke of Berwick. But he rapidly rose to the rank of captain, but his military career came to an end in 1688 at the Glorious Revolution. Colin Maclaurin. He was born in February 1688 and he died in June 1746. His age was 48 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a brilliant mathematician who extended Newtonian principles and made contributions to calculus and geometry. He is also known for being a child of prodigy and holding the record for being the youngest professor. The Maclaurin series, a special case of the Taylor series, is named after him. At 11, Maclaurin, a child prodigy at the time, entered the University of Glasgow. He graduated Masters of Arts 3 years later by defending a thesis on the power of gravity, and remained at Glasgow to study divinity until he was 19, where he was elected professor of mathematics in a 10-day competition at Marischal College and University in Aberdeen. This record as the world's youngest professor endured until March 2008, when the record was officially given to Elias Sabir. Robert Blair, he was born in April 1699 and he died in February 1746. His age was 46 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. A Scottish poet and minister remembered for his influential poem, The Grave, a key text in early graveyard poetry. He was the eldest son of the Robert Blair, one of the king's chaplains, and was born in Edinburgh. He was educated at the University of Edinburgh and in the Netherlands, and in 1731 he was appointed minister of Athelstaneford in East Lothian. Blair published only 3 poems. One was a commemoration of his father-in-law, and another was a translation. His reputation rests entirely on his third work, The Grave, in 1743, which is a poem written in blank verse on the subject of death and graveyard. It is much less controversial than its gloomy title might lead one to expect. Its religious subject no doubt contributed to its great popularity, especially in Scotland, where it gave rise to the so-called graveyard school of poetry. Anton Joseph Kurwerth, he was born in 1702 and he died in February 1746. His age was 44 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a German alchemist and writer, famed for his work, Aurea Catena Homeri, a mystical treatise on alchemical process and natural philosophy. The book was read by Pietists and later influenced the young Goth. It was first published in Leipzig in 1723 in the German language, followed by other editions in 1723, 1728, 1738, and 1757 Latin edition. Another Latin version was issued at Frankfurt in 1762, sometime in the late 18th century. Sigismund Backstrom translated parts of the work into English. In 1891, part of the translation was published in the Theosophical Society journal Lucifer. Thomas Watson, 3rd Earl of Rockingham, he was born in December 1715 and he died in February 1746. His age was 30 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was smallpox. He was an English nobleman and politician who held the title of the Earl of Rockingham and contributed to the political discussions in his time. He was an English nobleman and politician representing Canterbury in the House of Commons and was appointed Lord Lieutenant of Kent after succeeding to the earldom, but died shortly thereafter. Despite his politics, he was appointed Lord Lieutenant of Kent in succession to his brother, but did not long survive the appointment and died of smallpox at Rockingham Castle and was buried at Rockingham. In 1741 British general election he stood for Canterbury as an opposition Whig. Watson and the Troy Thomas best ousted the incumbent Sir Thomas Hales, a Whig supporter of Walpole's administration. He continued in opposition to successive governments during his tenure in the House of Commons, which terminated in 1745. Herman von der Hart, he was born in November 1660 and he died in February 1746. His age was 85 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a German historian and Orientalist, known for his pioneering studies on the Council of Constance and other historical events. He studied Oriental languages at the universities of Jena and Leipzig, and in 1690 he was called to the chair of Oriental languages at Helmstedt. He resigned his position in 1727 but lived at Helmstedt until his death. He left in a manuscript a history of the Reformation, which is preserved in the Hampstead Julium. Grand Duchess Anna Leopoldovna of Russia. She was born in December 1718 and she died in March 1746. Her age was 27 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was puerperal fever. She served as regent of Russia for her infant son, Ivan VI, before being deposed and imprisoned by Elizabeth of Russia. Anna was born Elizabeth Katharina Christine, the daughter of Karl Leopold, Duke of Mecklenburg, by his wife Catherine, the eldest daughter of Tsar Ivan V of Russia. Catherine's father, Ivan V, was elder brother of co-ruler of Russia with Peter the Great, but because he was mentally challenged and unfit to rule, all power was in the hands of Peter the Great, who was like a father to Catherine and looked out for her interests as long he was alive. She was passed over for several reasons, and the throne was offered to her younger sister, Anna Ivanovna, who became known to history as Empress Anna of Russia. Nicolas de la Julière, he was born in October 1656 and he died in March 1746. His age was 89 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a leading French Baroque portrait painter celebrated for his elegant and detailed depictions of European aristocracy and royalty. He went to England, where he was befriended and employed by Sir Peter Lely for 4 years at Windsor, Berkshire. While there, he also worked under the direction of Italian painter Antonio Ferrio. His painting caught the attention of Charles II, who wished to retain him in his service, but the controversy aroused by the Rye House plot against Roman Catholics alarmed him, and he left for Paris, where he was well received by the public as a painter. Upon his death, he donated to France several small landscapes and still life pictures he had created. William Flower, 1st Baron Castle-Darrow. He was born in March 1685 and he died in April 1746. His age was 61 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was an Irish politician and nobleman, remembered for building Castle Darrow, one of Ireland's finest country houses. He sat as Member of Parliament for County Kilkenny from 1715 to 1727. Subsequently, he represented Portarlington until 1733, when he was raised to the peerage as Baron Castle-Darrow of Castle-Darrow in the county of Kilkenny. At the time, the manor of Darrow was an ex-slave of County Kilkenny. In 1842, it was transferred to Queen's County, later known as Lewis. He was made High Sheriff of County Kilkenny in 1731 and was invested to the Privy Council of Ireland in 1735. He owned substantial property at Aberthinrig in Brecon. He inherited it from his stepmother, the Welsh heir, Dorothea Jeffreys. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.